Okay, we are now learning Shaar Hayichud Ch, Chapter 1, Part 2. So, in the last lesson, we discussed how it is the divine energy that is found, that is infused in every single creature or every creation that keeps it in existence. If at any moment that creation would lose the godly energy that is bringing it into existence, then it would cease to exist. Based on this, we will now understand a teaching of the Arizal. The Ari, Rabbi Isaac Luria, was a great Kabbalist who lived in the middle of the 16th century. He died in the city of Tzfat, and he led a group of Kabbalists in the city of Tzfat. And he taught that not only does a human being have a soul, but he said that even the inanimate, and certainly the animal kingdom, they all contain a soul. Let's read inside. V'zesh Omar HaArizal, this thought was expressed by the Arizal. Shegam b'dome mamish, that even that is that which is utterly inanimate, k'moy avonim ve'ofer umayim, like stones or earth or water. Even in them, yesh b'chinas nefesh v'chayas ruchnis. There is a soul and spiritual life force. And the question to understand here is, how can you say that a soul that shows no feelings, no emotions, certainly has no intellect, how can you say that it has a soul? But based on what we said before, it's now understood. Because when we say a soul, we don't mean feelings and emotions. What we mean to say is that anything that exists needs to have a godly, divine energy to bring it into existence. That energy is its soul. Let's read inside. Dahainu, b'chinas hislapshus oisius hadibor me'asarim ha'moros ha'machayis mahavis esademi. That is, although they evince no demonstrable form of animation within them are nevertheless enclosed the letters of speech from the 10 utterances which give life and existence to inanimate matter. Enabling it to come into being out of the naught and nothingness that preceded the 6 days of creation. So if it wasn't for that energy that is creating the stone at this moment, it wouldn't exist. And that's what we mean by the soul. Now, a human being also has a soul, certainly has a soul, but when we talk about a human soul, the human soul has a different characteristic than the soul of a stone. A human soul not only has to just exist, but it has to also give the characteristics of intellect and emotion and everything else that makes up a human being. And so to animals, if they have a soul, their soul does not just make them exist inanimately, but it also animates them. It also gives them life and gives them emotions and so on. So to the nature of the soul, that is different in each creation, but nevertheless, every creation has to have a godly energy, a soul that's bringing it into existence right now. Now, the only question is, according to what the Alter Rebbe is telling us here, the 10 utterances are the godly energy that bring everything into existence. Now, we know the 10 utterances. We can read them in Genesis. And in those 10 utterances, we find, let there be light, and we find 9 others, but we don't find everything that exists in the 10 utterances. So how can we say that the 10 utterances include all of creation? We don't find every created being in the 10 utterances inside. Now, although the name Evan, which means stone, is not mentioned in the 10 utterances recorded in the Torah, so how can we say that these letters of the 10 utterances are all the energy of creation? The answer to this is, nevertheless, the life force flows to the stone from the 10 utterances by means of combinations and substitutions of their letters. Now, before we explain it, what's the meaning of tzirufim and chilufei isis? Combinations and substitutions of the letters. So in other words, we're saying that all of the energy of creation is found in the 10 utterances. Nevertheless, those 10 utterances have to be combined in different ways. And sometimes we substitute one letter for another in order to get a different creation. So for example, as we read inside, an aleph, for example, may take the place of a hey, since both letters are articulated by the same organ of speech, and so on. So there's different forms of substitutions. There's also a form of substitution by substituting with a corresponding letter. And there's all kinds of ways, and this is a very deep Kabbalistic discussion. But in short, in one sentence, we say, which are transposed in the 231 gates, either in the direct or reverse order. We'll explain it in a moment. As explained in Sefer Yetzirah. So before we explain what that line means, what is Sefer Yetzirah? Sefer Yetzirah means the book of formation. And many people say that it was written by Abraham Avinu. And what is it about? It's about the secret of creation. That somehow if you were expert in Sefer Yetzirah, you would have the ability to create. There are stories that in Jewish history of Kabbalists, or even there are stories in the Talmud of people who use the power of Kabbalah that is found in Sefer Yetzirah to create. Like you have the famous story of the Golem of Prague, and other stories. Even in the Talmud, there's such a story of creating a golem. And what is the idea? Sefer Yetzirah has the secret of creation. And of course, if you're not an expert on Kabbalah, you won't really understand it. But nevertheless, one of the things that it says there is that creation is made through the 10 utterances. However, to get the other creations that are not mentioned, it is substituted in a number of different ways. One of them being the 231 combinations. We say gates, but what they mean is combinations directly and indirectly, directly in reverse order. So just to illustrate what we're talking about, first in English and then I'll show it in the Hebrew. So the letter A combined with a B is the direct way, A, B. The letter A can combine with a B, with a C, with a D, with an E, so it's A, B, A, C, A, D, A, E. That is direct. Or in a reverse order, B coming before the A, C coming before the A, D coming before the A, E coming before the D. Point being that by substituting and reversing the order of the energy that is represented by the letters, a different creation comes into being. And in the Hebrew, so we have Aleph Bet, Aleph Gimel, Aleph Dalet, Aleph Hey. And in the reverse, Bet Aleph, Gimel Aleph, Dalet Aleph, Hey Aleph, and so on. Okay, so we're not here to explain how creation takes place. What we're looking to is to show that everything in creation is contained in the 10 utterances, except that the combinations are different. So it's interesting that in DNA, in the whole discussion of DNA, we now understand that the DNA has a language, and that language can be represented by letters. And the way that the difference between the creations is by the sequencing of the DNA language. So it's just an interesting correlation. Not to say that necessarily that this is exactly what is being said, but it's an interesting connection, and perhaps this is something that was already understood by the Kabbalists already thousands of years ago, because Sefer Yetzirah is an ancient book, perhaps even written by Abraham. Let's continue inside. So we spoke about stones and sand and water. So too with all created things in the world. That the holy tongue, the Hebrew of the Torah, was the language used in creation. So therefore all created things are directly affected by their Hebrew names. So in other words, their Hebrew names represent the energy that had created this creation. The names of all creatures in the holy tongue, what they represent are the letters of speech, which descend degree by degree from the original 10 utterances recorded in the Torah, by means of substitutions and transpositions of letters through the 231 gates, until they reach a particular created thing and become invested in it, thereby giving it life. So as we said before, so that ultimately the combination of letters that forms the name Evan, stone, descends from the 10 utterances and is derived from them. And this combination of letters is the life force of the stone. Now, what the Alter Rebbe continues to explain is that you may ask, why couldn't everything just be created directly from the 10 utterances? Why can't the 10 utterances include every single detail in creation? So this is what he continues to explain. For the life force issuing directly from them, from the 10 utterances, is a far greater energy than the capacity of the individual creatures. It's far too intense to serve as their life force. They don't have the energy. They don't have the koyach, the power, the greatness. They can receive the life force only when it descends and is progressively diminished, degree by degree, by means of substitutions and transpositions of the letters. Okay? So, originally, the creation, those greater aspects of creation, which are more general, which have more greater power, those things are created directly through the 10 utterances. But that energy is dynamic. It's not something that is stationary. The energy has come forth and whatever came into existence exists and that's it. No. This energy can now be combined in many ways. And it has the creative power to constantly create through substitutions of, basically through the sequencing of the letters. Then there's another concept of gematriyos. That's the numerical values, the numerical values. The life force of certain creations can be so muted that even a transposition of letters does not diminish the energy enough, and it is done through their numerical equivalent. Another Kabbalistic concept. What we're looking for is to condense this life force. So a particular creature can be brought forth from it. Now, once that creation is brought forth, so if you had the intelligence, the spiritual intelligence, to look at the nature or the soul, the inner dimension of any creation, what you will be able to discover is the energy that animates, that not just animates, but brings that creation into existence and perhaps even animates it. And if you had that spiritual intelligence, you would be able to divine the name of that creation. That is the name by which the creature is called in the Holy Tongue. It's a vessel for the life force condensed into the letters of that name. So it says in the Medrash, actually it says it in Genesis, that God brought all of the animals to Adam, the first man, so that he can name them. So the commentators in the Medrash talk about why did God have to bring them to Adam to name them. Anybody can name them. What was the great wisdom of Adam that he was able to name the creatures? So as we explained just now, when you look at a creature and you're able to see behind the surface, you're able to see the energy that brings this creature into existence, you can then name it, because you can understand what energy and what combination of letters brought out the energy that brings this creation into existence. Let us continue. They descend from the 10 utterances recorded in the Torah. They have the power and vitality to create a being ex nihilo and give it life forever. So there's two aspects to it: creating it and also being able to give it life. In other words, the creative process continues as mentioned before. So when we see new forms of life coming into existence, which we don't really see that much, but we see changes happening in creation, and also the fact that one created being can give forth life to create another one, and it goes on forever. It's because the energy, the original energy that was infused in creation at the time of the utterance of the 10 utterances, that energy continues to exist and to create through the substitution and the sequencing of the language of creation. Now, how does it have the power to do so? It's not the creator. And the answer is no, it is the creator. The Torah and the creator is all one. So that creative power, just like God can create, so too the 10 utterances of the Torah is the creative power that God infused in creation. So the creation is ongoing at every moment, and things can only continue to exist because of the creative power that is found in the creation. With this, we conclude chapter 1 of Shaar Hayichud Ch. God willing, in chapter 2, we will discuss the following question. Why can't we say that at the beginning of creation, God infused the energy and put into motion everything that will take place forever? Why do we need to say that God is presently involved in the creation? So that will be explained in chapter 2, to be continued.